I have been asked whether, in the years to come, it will be possible to kill 40 million American people in the 20 largest American towns by the use of atomic bombs in a single night. I am afraid that the answer to that question is yes.
People are often remembered for their greatest accomplishments or failures, and for Oppenheimer, it was harnessing the power of the atom for the first time in history to create a bomb. To some, he was the genius who instantly ended the Second World War and saved millions of lives. To others, he was the head of a team responsible for killing hundreds of thousands in seconds. In short, he was known as the father of the atomic bomb. But people aren't simply defined by their major successes or failures. Oppenheimer, for instance, was not just a brilliant physicist, but also a lover of poetry, a charismatic speaker with an incredible intellect, fluent in 7 languages, including Latin and Sanskrit. He was passionate about horseback riding and had a knack for disrupting marriages due to his fascination with women. These attributes combined to create Oppenheimer's story filled with contradictions and mysticism. Born in New York on April 22nd, 1904, Robert Oppenheimer was the son of a wealthy textile merchant father and painter mother who were Jewish immigrants from Prussia. They lived in a luxurious mansion adorned with paintings by titans like Picasso and Van Gogh. His brother Frank was also a physicist and would later inspire numerous science museums around the world by founding the San Francisco Museum. As a child, Oppenheimer was often ill and spent much of his time at home. His interest in geology sparked when his father gifted him a mineral kit. This curiosity marked his first step into the world of science. He attended a school that prioritized teaching ethical humanism, emphasizing how people could live more ethical lives. Here he explored literature and mineralogy, and strived to become a more moral individual. By his senior year, he had developed an interest in chemistry, and at 17, he enrolled in Harvard College. A year into his studies, he contracted colitis, an inflammation and ulceration of the colon. His father sent him to rural New Mexico to recover. There, Oppenheimer fell in love with horseback riding and often disappeared for days exploring the vast, desolate landscapes, an experience that would later help him select a location for the first atomic bomb test. He studied chemistry at Harvard, but due to compulsory requirements, he also took courses in history, literature, and philosophy. A thermodynamics course from Percy Bridgman, who would later win the 1946 Nobel Prize in Physics for his work on high-pressure physics, led Oppenheimer to take an interest in experimental physics. He graduated from Harvard with highest honors in just 3 years and was accepted to the University of Cambridge, where he hoped to work with Ernest Rutherford, often considered the father of atomic and nuclear physics. However, Rutherford was not impressed with Oppenheimer's experimental background and, alongside his Harvard professor, suggested that Oppenheimer pursue theoretical physics instead. J.J. Thomson, Rutherford's predecessor and the discoverer of the electron, accepted Oppenheimer as a student. He had been awarded the 1906 Nobel Prize in Physics for his research on electrical conduction in gases. Oppenheimer's life was marked by being surrounded by brilliance, and almost everyone he encountered would win a Nobel Prize. Oppenheimer himself was nominated 3 times, in 1946, 1951, and 1967, but never won. Why? The reasons are intriguing and will unfold in the rest of this story. Oppenheimer's time in Cambridge was one filled with frustration and unhappiness. He was miserable at school, bored to death in Thomson's lab, and felt he wasn't learning anything. His advisor, Patrick Blackhat, who would later win the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1948 for his work on cosmic rays and paleomagnetism, was strict and demanding, much to the despair of the sensitive Oppenheimer. At one point, Oppenheimer's discontent reached such an extent that he left a poisoned apple in Black Hat's office, a dangerous prank discovered before it could do any harm. Saved from legal repercussions thanks to his wealthy family, this troubled young man found solace in smoking, often chain-smoking long cigarettes. His brilliant mind and obsessive problem-solving led to neglecting meals for days on end, which eventually took a toll on his mental health. This was manifested in an incident where he physically attacked his friend, Francis Ferguson, simply because Ferguson had mentioned an upcoming marriage. Despite his rough youth and tumultuous character, Oppenheimer began making his mark in the scientific world. In 1926, he left England and the field of experimental physics behind, heading to Gottingen University, the cradle of theoretical physics, to do his doctoral studies under Max Born. His doctoral work was productive, resulting in about 15 papers, significantly contributing to quantum mechanics. However, as his recognition grew in the scientific community, so did his tendency to alienate people. In September 1927, Oppenheimer arrived at Caltech on the west coast of the United States, where he met renowned chemist Linus Pauling. The two initially formed a close friendship, working together on chemical bond studies. This camaraderie soured when Oppenheimer developed a romantic interest in Pauling's wife, Ava Helen. This led to a permanent rift between the two scientists. Oppenheimer then visited Paul Ehrenfest's Institute in the Netherlands, impressing everyone with his ability to pick up Dutch in just 6 weeks. After a stint at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, where he worked with Wolfgang Pauli, Oppenheimer was diagnosed with tuberculosis. He retreated to his brother's ranch in New Mexico for recuperation, rekindling his love for the desert landscape. This was just the beginning of his deep involvement with these two passions, physics and the New Mexico desert, which would converge in a very dramatic fashion in the years to come. When he recovered and returned to school, he began to cultivate the next generation of physicists. His electric personality was such that people either admired him or despised him. His students were not only eager to converse with him, but also tried to imitate his walk, his way of speaking, and other mannerisms. Opie took a personal interest in the research of each of his students. For instance, in a single evening with his students, they discussed topics spanning nearly every field of physics, from quantum electrodynamics and cosmic rays to the production of electron pairs and nuclear physics. One eye of Oppenheimer was in the nucleus of an atom, the other in the heavens. His work predicted an event known as gravitational collapse. This suggested that certain stars should transform into what we now call neutron stars after their deaths. The first neutron star was indeed discovered in 1967, more than 3 decades after his work. Even when the concept of a neutron star was non-existent, they managed to calculate the maximum mass limit for these stars to remain stable. This limit is known today as the Tolman-Oppenheimer-Volkoff limit, and it still stands. But they didn't stop there. In a 1939 study with his doctoral student Snyder, they predicted that even larger stars should cause even greater gravitational collapse, essentially causing a tear in the fabric of space-time. Today, we call these objects black holes. Yes, Oppenheimer was a scientific genius, no doubt about it. However, the spirit of the times was starting to engulf him. Oppenheimer had grown up as a stauncher political individual. He didn't read newspapers, he wasn't interested in politics or economics. He didn't even know about the Wall Street crash in America in 1929 until he stumbled upon the news during a walk with a friend. 6 months after the event, he didn't vote in the first 3 elections when he could have. He cast his first vote in 1936. Although it is not known for whom, Franklin Roosevelt won that election. Roosevelt would lead America into World War II following the attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan on December 7, 1941. Just 2 months before that, he had initiated the accelerated project known as the Manhattan Project to develop the atomic bomb before the Nazis could. When Roosevelt's Vice President Harry Truman was elected president in 1945, he would drop the bomb that Oppenheimer had almost single-handedly prepared on Japan. Starting in 1934, Oppenheimer began to take interest in politics and international relations as he saw the global political situation deteriorating. He devoted about 3% of his annual income to help German physicists fleeing the Nazis. He quickly embraced left-wing thinking and donated part of his salary to anti-fascist and progressive movements. He started attending worker rallies with his students, and like almost all academicians who supported social reforms at the time, he was labelled a communist. In 1936, he fell in love with Gin Turtlett, a literature professor's daughter at Berkeley and a medical student at Stanford. Gin was even more left-leaning than he was, openly writing for the Communist Party's publication, West Her Worker. However, it's challenging for people with such explosive emotions to stay together. After a turbulent 3-year relationship, Gin left Oppenheimer. Emotionally empty, Opie fell in love with Kathin Kitty Puning only a few months later. Kitty was a radical student and former Communist Party member. It was her 3rd marriage, and she had lost one of her husbands in the Spanish Civil War. Love led them astray. In a party in 1940, Kitty and Oppenheimer were found sleeping in the same bed. Did they spend the night together? It's unclear, but Kitty gave birth to her first child with Oppenheimer on May 12, 1941. A simple calculation shows that the baby was likely conceived between August 20th and 26, 1940, so it's quite likely. Regardless, this naturally caused a quick fallout between Kitty and her husband. Eventually, Kitty divorced her husband and married Oppenheimer, her 4th husband, on November 1st, 1940. Everything was about to change on October 9th, 1941. In August 1939, American President Roosevelt received a letter from Albert Einstein and Leos Szilard. They explained that developments in physics could lead to a new and incredibly powerful type of bomb, and therefore America should immediately start securing uranium deposits and rapidly fund the chain reaction research initiated by Enrico Fermi. This letter set off a domino effect that culminated in Roosevelt's order to develop an atomic bomb in 1941. Thus, the atomic bomb race officially began. The research was conducted in a civilian manner for the first year, and Oppenheimer was appointed as the rapid fission coordinator of the project. Eagerly accepting this role, Opie organized a camp that summer to bring together European physicists with his own students. The Champions League had convened. The desired qualities of the bomb and how to achieve them were determined. There was no turning back now. By June 1942, the project had been handed over to the American Army, becoming a military venture. A unit called the Manhattan District Engineers was established. As the name suggests, the first office of this unit was in Manhattan, New York. This name soon became the project's name, the Manhattan Project. General Leslie Groves, a seasoned American Army engineer, was appointed as the head of the project in October. Groves was not particularly gifted intellectually, but as an experienced commander, he was excellent at selecting the right people to accomplish a task. The task ahead was extremely difficult and time was tight. They needed someone who could focus like a laser and carry the task to the end without wavering. That person was Oppenheimer. This decision, of course, shocked many because he was known as a communist. As we delve deeper into the post-Manhattan Project phase of Oppenheimer's life, it's clear that the man dubbed the father of the atomic bomb was grappling with the ethical implications of his creation. He famously stated in a lecture in 1947, in some sort of crude sense which no vulgarity, no humor, no overstatement can quite extinguish, the physicists have known sin, and this is a knowledge which they cannot lose. Oppenheimer's stance against the development of the hydrogen bomb put him at odds with many influential figures in the US government and military. He faced a security hearing in 1954, accused of being a security risk due to his past associations with communists. The ordeal was a blow to Oppenheimer, resulting in his security clearance being revoked and effectively ending his political influence. Although his reputation had been tarnished, Oppenheimer never ceased contributing to the scientific community. In his later years, he became the director of the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, where he focused on nurturing future scientific talent and advancing the understanding of theoretical physics. He was awarded the Enrico Fermi Award in 1963, a recognition by the US government of his contributions to science, a somewhat belated reconciliation. He passed away in 1967, leaving behind a legacy as complex and multifaceted as the man himself. Oppenheimer's life is a reminder of the power of scientific discovery, the moral dilemmas that can accompany such progress, and the responsibility that we bear when wielding this knowledge. As we conclude, it's essential to remember that behind every historical event, there are real people. The story of J. Robert Oppenheimer is not merely about the development of the atomic bomb or the dawn of the nuclear age, but about a man navigating extraordinary times, juggling his ambition, intellect, and the heavy burden of the implications his work had on humanity. That wraps up our journey through the life of Robert Oppenheimer. If you've enjoyed this exploration of one of the 20th century's most influential and controversial figures, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to receive notifications whenever we upload a new video. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining us on this historical journey, and we'll see you in the next one. And we'll see you in the next one. And we'll see